Good evening, all participants. Now we are playing ICI Moto song. I request all participants to put their right hand on their heart. So now I request Chairman of Ahmedabad branch, CA Fenil Shah, to give his opening remarks on this last day of this series. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishan Bhai. The faculty for the evening and the last day of this DirectX Refresher Course Season 1, CA Avinash Ravani ji, the Chairman of DirectX and IndirectX Committee of Ahmedabad branch of WRC of ICI, CA Sunil Sanghvi ji, and also you can say the whole creator of this particular whole DTRC Season 1, the Secretary of our branch, CA Bishan Shah, and all the members who are attending this particular webinar. I welcome you all to this evening, a day prior to our 74th Independence Day celebration. Friends, before we move towards our last session, I would like to just brief you out with respect to a few updates of the branch. Yesterday, you might have received the mail with respect to the new landline number of the branch. So you can now connect with us through that new landline number. So I request you to update the same in your contacts so that you don't keep on continuing on contacting on the old email ID, old landline number. Moreover, friends, now our Ahmedabad branch website has been revamped and it is being made more user friendly. I can say more members friendly, and almost all the useful links you will get at that particular website. So I would request you to access the same and take the most benefit of the same. Plus, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at branch, we are going to have a flag hosting celebration with utmost social distancing in this pandemic situation. So I welcome you all to this celebration also. The ceremony will be graced by the presence of Shri Rishabh Jain ji, the founder and president of Swarnim, Startup and Innovation University of India, and also as CA Aniket Talati ji, Central Council member, as a guest of honor tomorrow morning. So I request you all to attend the same. Also, friends, from 24th of August, an ingrained IND-AS webinar series is starting with all the speakers from outside Ahmedabad, well experienced, and in that we are going to discuss from basics till the advanced version in a very structured manner by making the use of the practical case studies. So I request you to take also the benefit of that, and various other knowledge programs are also going to come in this particular month of August. Apart from this, friends, this August we are having one unique program. You all might be aware of that 22nd of August is Ganesh Chaturthi. And friends, generally we have a trend of buying the Ganesha Murti or Murti of Ganesh ji from outside. May it be made up of mud or may it be made up of POP. But this time, for the very first time, you can say Ahmedabad branch is coming with some unique creative initiative. Soon you will receive the mail with respect to that. That on 20th of August in the evening at branch, we are having one small workshop. I know it's something out of box. We are having a small workshop at branch where the artists will come and will teach us to make a Ganesha Murti by our hands from mud, along with keeping seeds of plants in that particular murti, so that we can very easily learn that in a creative manner. So I welcome you all members with your family. You can send your spouse or your children to this creative workshop. They will come here, they will create a murti and they will come home with a Ganesha murti. You need to immerse that. या उसका विसर्जन आपको घर में ही pot में करना है, and then after that, that murti will get converted into a small plant. So this time, for the very first time, we are coming up with this initiative. So I request all the members to participate in this initiative in big number with your family members. At last, I would like to congratulate again CS Sunil Sanghvi for keeping untiring efforts and a main key role, playing a main key role behind this particular whole DTRC season 1 and also coming up with season 2 in such a pandemic situation in a webinar, and that to getting so knowledgeable faculties and getting a learning crowd to attend this particular DTRC season 1. So would congratulate on behalf of all the members CS Sunil Sanghvi ji, and now I would request CS Sunil Sanghvi to take the session ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel Bhai, for the such kind words. On behalf of Ahmedabad branch, I welcome CA Avinash Bhai Rawani, who is from Mumbai. Dignitaries on the dais, Chairman CA Fanil Bhai Shah, Secretary CA BS Bishan Bhai Shah, and all seniors and friends. Today's topic, that is a key amendments and the new income tax return requirements for the assessment year 2021. We will have the session of around 1 hour and 40 minutes, and the last 15-20 minutes we'll be having the question answer session. I would like to introduce CA Avinash Bhai Rawani, who is from Mumbai, who is practicing, who's having in his own firm Rawani and Company since 1993. He has delivered more than 500 lectures in various study circle groups of WIRC, SIRC, various forum of the ICI, BCA, Chamber of Tax Consultants, corporate forums, and other organizations. He is also visiting faculty for the Corporate House, Bombay Chambers, and IIM. He has contributed various articles to the various study groups and the website ICI journals. He was special invitee member of the Direct Tax Committee of the ICI at the central level for the year 2018. He is presently member of the study group of the Direct Tax ASAB and CLG Committee of the ICI, and also the member of the Law and Representation Committee of the Chamber of Tax Consultants. He is also co-author of the various books, technical guides on the ITR, and many other matters related with our profession. With this brief introduction, I welcome you again, C. Avinash Bhai Rawani. You have spent the times, you have accepted the invitation very quickly, and we are obliged to you. We would like to see you again also in future, and I would request you now to start the session.
Thank you, Sunil Bhai, for this kind introduction. And first of all, I would like to thank Ahmedabad branch for giving me this opportunity. I think this is my 4th lecture in Ahmedabad branch, and I have been visiting to Ahmedabad since 2014 onwards. Then also the chairman of the Ahmedabad branch, CA Fanil Shah, CA Bishan Shah, and all the seniors in the profession. I will try my level best to give the proper justice to the subject. And I think this returns and whatever the changes which are happening in the income tax returns is one of the challenging issues for our professional brothers. So today we will try to cover maximum points possible, and we'll also take question and answers also of the members. And if any issues are remaining, we will subsequently definitely try to give the proper. I will try my level best to give proper justice to the to the subject. Topic per se, I think income tax return, everybody is filing it. So only what are the basic changes which are there, and how to present the returns, and how to ensure that your returns is filed correctly and uploaded correctly, so you don't get again the notices from the department, because the challenges as of now are many. And if you have seen yesterday's this address of our learned Prime Minister, and what is the expectation from our fraternity, that is also one of the biggest challenge for us. So starting per se, topic per se, I would always recommend that I always start with a disclaimer that whatever I speak today is valid till till the end of the session, because the things are changing fast in the income tax base because of the changes in the technology. Now this is the the information which I got yesterday. The total return filers across India, because we have a population of around 134 crores in India, and out of 134 crores people, roughly around 122 crore people are holding Aadhaar card. This is the statistical information which has been derived, and out of which 9.5 crore people have been registered on the income tax department website. Individuals have been registered on the income tax department website, and almost around 6.50 crore people in the India individuals are filing the returns. And if you see, this is the statistical information which has come from the ministry, that is says that almost around 57% people are disclosing the income which is less than the taxable limit. So whenever the taxable limit is increased, the return filers in that category, so 57% people are filing the returns, they are not contributing any single amount of tax to the government. And if you see the other criteria, above 50 lakhs, it is only 1% return. And if you actually see the income, what people are getting and what the people are earning and what they are disclosing, there is a huge gap between that. And to build up fill up this huge gap, the department has taken various initiatives. And one of this is about changes in the return of income. Every year we have Finance Act, and Finance Act brings certain changes. Till 2006, we were filing the income tax returns offline, and when offline return was, it was a single paper return. But now every year we have to wait for the utility, and when the utility is raised, then only we can file the return. So basic the purpose of this making the changes in the ITR is that is government has declared a surgical strike on the tax evasion. So it is a basic the intention of the government is that there should not be any tax evasion. And one of the area where they identified last year that there were many ghost companies, those directors where their shell companies were being floated, shell companies were there, and people were skipping the income declaration by virtue of this, and they have identified almost around 6 lakh companies have been identified, and they have been closed by the ministry. And then again, the specific other issues are going on to revive such companies, to identify such type of persons who have actually earned a lot of money out of this, and they have evaded the taxes. Then the investment in basically in unlisted companies, there's a tax planning going on heavily under this head and this criteria. So this is one of the area which has been identified by the government, that there is a lot of tax planning which has been, or the tax evasion has been done. And one of the area wherein this is identified, that basically unlisted companies, they have, from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, they have made it mandatory to convert their shares into the demat form. And by virtue of this, so any share transaction, backdated transaction will not happen because of this, because this has been made mandatory. So this year, when you are doing the audit of the unlisted company, you have to specifically ensure that this criteria, this requirement has been fulfilled. And Companies Act also requires that if you don't, they have not converted the shares into demat form, such unlisted companies, then you have to report it in the specified form which has been given for that purpose. Then the genuine taxpayer of the country, that is salaried and salaried tax individuals whose income TDS is already deducted while making payment of tax, but they also have some scope of doing some tax planning in some areas. So that has been, that loophole which was there in this has been plugged in this return of income. Then there are many revenue leakages which have been identified by the ministry, that in case of capital gains and sale of immobile property, that area is also being addressed within this income tax return. Then India has already signed almost treaty with almost every country in the world, and there is the exchange of information between each of these countries And based on this information which is available, India is also getting information from various countries, and India is also sharing the information with countries about their citizens. So there being an exchange of information, and based on this exchange of information, the data is being captured, and the tax evaders are being identified. Then in the basic purpose of the department is to increase the tax base and boost the revenue collection. This is the idea which yesterday our Prime Minister has also given to us. So this year again the form has been notified. Form is supposed to be notified on 31st of March, but due to Corona, there has been delay in notification of the form, because there were certain extensions which has been given, or certain relaxations which has been given by virtue of the press note which was released on 31st of March, which was one of the reasons wherein the form release of this form was delayed. So there is no changes in the number of the forms. Number of forms remains same. But this year there are 4 or 5 major changes which has happened. That is, first of all, it is said that the return can be filed now using the PAN or Aadhaar card. So automatically, if you see, if the statistical information, statistical data, what we see, that out of 122 crore people, roughly around 70 crore people are holding PAN, and 52 crore people are not having PAN, or they will not be eligible for application of PAN also. So here automatically now Aadhaar card is converted into PAN. So if you see, one of the biggest change which happened this year, that if a person is having Aadhaar card, so he can get this PAN allotment can be done easily on the income tax website within 30 seconds, provided that the Aadhaar is linked with your mobile number. Because if the Aadhaar is not linked with the mobile number, you will have to get this Aadhaar linked with the mobile number. This is because it has certain other benefits of e-verification, etc. are there. So this is one area wherein now it is said that you can, the people, though the person who wants to file the return with return and he doesn't have the PAN, then he can file the returns to Aadhaar. So this is one of the biggest change which has happened. ITR 1 to ITR 2, 4 can be filed using PAN or Aadhaar card, because the reason is that Aadhaar is allotted to the only individual SSCs and not to other SSCs, because ITR 5, 6 and 7 does not, these ITRs are to be filed by other type of SSCs, non-individual SSCs. So ITR 1 to ITR 4 can be filed. Then one of the criteria which has been specified this year, that if a person has deposited cash which is exceeding ₹1 crore in the current account, or he has spent money on the foreign travel exceeding ₹2 lakhs or more, or electricity expenses of ₹1 lakh or more, then he has to, even if he doesn't have the taxable income, is mandatorily required to file the return. This is one of the additional category which has been added this year for filing the returns. Then time limit of claiming of exemptions, which was there, that is was extended to 30th of June, then subsequently 31st of July. 31st of July was the last date for making the investment. Those who have skipped the timing deadline because of this COVID-19 pandemic. So any amount which is claimed, which is deposited within that period, that also can be claimed as an investment, and deduction can be availed under Chapter 6F. This point has to be taken into consideration. Right now, the department has released ITR 1 to ITR 4 utility. They are made available for filing. So anybody who wants to file, they can file the returns. Due dates as of now, all the due dates are now 30th of November for any type of SSCs. Even if the person is covered by audit or non-audit, etc., the 30th November is the deadline as of now. But one important changes which has happened this year is that we will have to submit tax audit report 1 month prior. That is, the tax audit submission due date has been made as 31st of October, which is as of now it is 31st of October. The reason behind here, this gap which has been given here is that government department wants to come up with a pre-fill utility. And if you see, the ITR 1 to ITR 4 pre-fill utility are now available on the income tax department website. It has been made available from yesterday. So any person who wants to file the return and they are not don't want to use the software, they can download the pre-fill utility and they can use that pre-fill utility, open that pre-fill utility in the that specified utility, and they can file the returns. All the information related to your 26As, your personal information, your bank account details, etc., is being captured in the utility itself. So that utility is now made available. And once this tax audit report is submitted and filed, the refill utility for other ITRs will be made available. So this is the basic reasons why this difference of 1 month has been kept by the department. So tax audit due date as of now is 31st of October and all other due dates are 30th of November. Exemption from e-filing, because now if you see this e-filing which started almost around in 2006 on a pilot basis, and now almost this is the 14th year we will be doing e-filing. So in 2006 when this e-filing was done, it was a challenge that the person were not ready to accept this change. But now today if you go, otherwise no one is ready to file this return in the paper form. But one category as of now is remaining, that super senior citizens. If a person means a person who is of an individual who is of 80 years of age or more, and if he doesn't have any income from profits or gains of business or profession, then he can file the returns. He has the option to file the return on the offline mode. That is, he can submit the return in the physical mode. Here one question may come that a person may not have any income from properties, from this profit or gains of business. He may be a partner in any form, because a partner, if he is a partner in any form and he is not getting any remuneration or interest also from that partnership form, but he is getting the share of profit, then whether he can be exempted from e-filing? According to me, it is no, because share of profit is a part of profit and gains of business, though it is exempt under section 10. Then also he is being a partner of the firm, he cannot file the return in a paper mode. So this is only one area where this exemption is available for e-filing. Then coming to the form, every year we have new form and we have to study the new forms, and because now maximum people are using the software, they don't take that much effort or pain to study the form. And this is one of the biggest message with a short message which is given, that a chartered accountant is giving a list of the details which is required to be filed, that the details has to be included in the return of income. And he's telling the person that, see, please don't lose the temper this time, because looking at the new forms, the requirements, the SSC may also lose the temper, and it is the biggest challenge as of now, because the time which we are facing as of now, the criteria for which the filing has been specified is also very critical. Coming to the form, that is basically nobody, I think I don't need these things, doesn't need much more discussion. Only one change which has happened, that is in ITR 1 and ITR 4 form. ITR form is one form and ITR 4 form are the simplest form in the income tax website. Till last year, the person, it says that resident individual who is earning income from salary or pension or one house property, other sources, etc., all aggregating up to 50 lakhs, agriculture income up to 5,000, they can use this form. But provided they have this any dividend income, etc., they cannot use, because this everybody knows it. I'm not going much in detail about this. Only two changes which are made here is that, if till last year it was that if a person was holding one house property and that property was held in the joint name, then they were not, that the person cannot use, that person was not able to use this ITR. But now he can use this. 1 minute. So they can use now ITR. So if a person is holding a house, having one house property, but that property is held in the joint name, then and if he falls within that specified criteria, then he can use ITR 1. ITR 2 is for all other type of individual, but that person should not have business income from business or profession. And that is and second thing is that he should not be a pioneer having any income from business or profession. Then he has to use ITR 2. He can use ITR 3 is for individual and HUF for having income from property, business or profession. So those persons who are not eligible to file ITR 1 or ITR 2, the last return available to them is ITR 3, provided he is not eligible to file any other return, that is ITR 4. It is only for individual and residents or not ordinary residents. Here also one biggest change is that if a person is holding the ownership of joint ownership of any property, and he is having income which is taxable at a presumptive rate, then he can use ITR 4, which was earlier not eligible. Earlier we use ITR 3. So if any person who wants to file ITR is eligible to file ITR 1, ITR 2, ITR 4, and wants to file ITR 3, he can file ITR 3. It is not mandatory that he has to use that specific form. He can shift to ITR 3. But only requirement here is that when you are using the higher version of the ITR, all the mandatory information which is required to be filled in that ITR that are to be filled. If that information is not, you are not eligible, means you are not required to file the return or if that information in that ITR, if it is mandatory, even if you are not required to give that information while you are using other ITRs, then also you have to give that information. And here one precaution has to be taken, that whenever you are using any utility or any ITR, and that subsequently if you want to revise the ITR, you will have to use the same utility. So same utility has to be used. You cannot shift to other utility because the system doesn't permit you to change the utility. Now suppose you have used ITR 4, and now you want to shift to ITR 3, then you cannot do that. So basically, when you are using ITR, if you have found out that you want to revise the return, some income has been skipped, and that income forms the part of the ITR 3, then you cannot use ITR 3. Then that will be treated as a separate submission. We'll discuss much in detail about when we come to the assessment type in this at the end of this session. Other ITRs, ITR 5 is for the persons, that is individual HUF company, and basically also LLP. Then those persons who are not claiming exemption under section, they are not eligible to file ITR 7 because of the exemption which they are claiming. ITR 6 is for companies other than the companies claiming exemption under section 11. ITR 7 is for charitable trust, association, or claiming benefit of exemption under section 11 or any including such companies. So if a company, section 25 company or section 8 company is there and they are claiming exemption under this section, then they have to file ITR 7. They cannot file ITR 6 because ITR 6 doesn't allow any such deductions or any such exemptions under this. This is basically the overall view of the ITR. ITR trust is 7 is for the trust, and political party are mandatorily required to file with the digital signature. Other SSCs can use other modes of e-verification which is enabled. Now coming to the general changes which is there in the ITR. Now Finance Act 2019 had introduced, that is that amended the section 139(1) and added 7 provision in this. Accordingly, if a person is is eligible to file the return because of this, he is fulfilling this criteria, then he has, by time of filing of the return, he has to select whether he is filing the return because of this criteria. Now a person earlier may be filing the return voluntarily, that is his income was below the taxable limit, but he was filing the return voluntarily, as he was not required to file the return. But then also that return was filed voluntarily, but this year that this criteria has been changed, because now if you have spent any money in foreign travel, or you have spent money in consumption of electricity or deposited in current account, then you are mandatorily required to file, then you have to select this stage. So here it will ask you the question. First question is you have to reply that whether you are filing the return because of this. If you are selecting yes, then other question has to be answered. That is whether you have deposited cash exceeding 1 crore in 1 crore or more current account. It is aggregate of total deposits in all the current accounts. So once you select yes, then you have to specify the amount which has been deposited. If you have incurred the expenditure in aggregate of rupees 2 lakhs or more for foreign traveling, or for yourself or any other person. Now here it says that the person who has spent the money. So if a person who has spent the money and the traveler is the other person, then the person who has spent the money, that person has to file the return and not the person who has traveled. Subsequently, suppose if that person who has traveled and he has reimbursed the money to that person who has spent the money, then what happens that this person was a mediator. It is just he has been a mediator to just for the temporary purpose he has spent the money, but the actual person who is there who has spent the money, if he has spent that money, then he has to file the return if he is not eligible to file mandatorily. Then even consumption of electricity is said that any amount which is spent for a consumption of electricity during the previous year, then if it's selected yes, then definitely you have to put the amount. Here basically regular taxpayers who are having the taxable income and they are regularly filing the return of income, they are not covered by this section. they are covered by other sections. So they will not be required to fill any information over here. Then this year, if you see the Finance Act 2020 amended amended, and it made that tax audit provisions have been amended. So it says that applicable from 1st April 2020. So assessment year 2021, now we will be required to answer this question. So if you are declaring any income which is under section 44A, 44B, 44BB, etc., and if you are filing the return, then you are required to select yes. Now, second question, if it is selected as no, then you will have to answer the questions whether your total sale is exceeding rupees 5 crore, it is between 1 crore to 5 crores. If you select yes, then it will ask other information, that is whether there is cash spending or cash payments or cash receipts exceeding rupees 5% of your total receipts. Then if it is exceeding 5% of the total receipt, any of this one or both of this, then you are liable for tax audit. We will be discussing much more in the second slide which is coming. Then if you are liable, if your turnover is exceeding 5 crores, you are automatically liable for tax audit. Then other criteria does not come into picture. Then if the person, if you have got the accounts audited, then you have to select as, and other information has to be given, which is mandatory, will required, your firm registration number, your permanent account number. But one change here has been made, that now Aadhaar number can also be given. So if the chartered accountant or the person who has signed the tax audit report, he doesn't want to give his PAN number and he wants to give his Aadhaar number can be given. So that option is available. So it is at the option of the signing this auditor whether Aadhaar number or PAN number has to be given. So it can be interchanged in any field. So basically everywhere where the PAN was required to be given, this Aadhaar number has been replaced. So you can give the Aadhaar number over there. So this is one of the change which has happened. Now coming to this, that is what your income, that is 44AD, 44AE, 44BB. There is in this section, this requires you to report that within that specified percentage of income has to be reported. So eligible SSA here, it is individual, HUF or partnership firm who are carrying on the business. LLP, company and other SSA are not covered by 44AD. So basically it is basically you have to declare the income at a specified percentage. You cannot claim the deduction under section 10A, 10B, etc. is there, and other eligible business are there. Then one change biggest has happened in the section 44 ADA, that is now a category other the sub notified professional has been added. That is 44 AA1 now requires that film artists are covered under the category of the professionals. That is the actor, cameraman, director, music director, art director. There is those who are falling within that this category. They have been notified as a professional. So they have to declare the income. If the income is below if the turnover is below 50 lakhs, then they are required to report at that specified percentage. That is 50% of the profits has to be reported, will be considered under the section 44 ADA. And if it is below the 50%, then you have to get the accounts audited. So this is the change which has happened. So this has to be taken into consideration while filing the return. Now coming to this per se, say aggregate receipts. Now it says what aggregate receipts? Aggregate receipts means your capital contribution, all sales of even sale of assets is considered, all income, even loan taken, which was loan taken and loan given is received back, that is also considered in the aggregate receipt. So you have to take into consideration all this, combine all this receipts, and you have to see that whether it exceeds 5% or not. Second is about aggregate payments, includes drawing. Even drawings of the partners, proprietors also considered as payments. All expenses payment, purchase of assets, even the loan which was given in cash, that is also considered. So even if you have taken a loan and that loan is been repaid in cash, that is also considered a part of payment. So you have to just aggregate this, and you have to ensure that it falls within if it is less than 5% and your turnover is between 1 crore to 5 crores, then you are not liable for tax audit, which is applicable for all type of assets. Only professionals are not covered. So first, this chart will explain to you in detail. That is, if your turnover is more than 5 crores, then 44 AB is applicable. But if your turnover is between 2 crores to 5 crores, then you have to see that your cash receipts and cash payment is less than 5%, then no audit is required. But if it is exceeding this, then you are required to get this accounts audited. Coming to the receipts which is less than 2 crores, and then you are covered under, if you are an individual or HUF or a firm, and your net profit ratio is less than 8% or 6%, then you are liable for tax audit. You have to do the tax audit for the section 44AD, read with 44AD and other subsections which are applicable. And if your net profit is ratio is more than 8% or 6%, then you are not required to get the accounts audited. One question may come here that if my turnover is between 2 crores and 5 crores, whether I have to report the profit at this specified percentage? No, that will not be applicable, because that criteria is only applicable if your turnover is less than 2 crores and not to these other assets. And provided that you are an individual or a firm, and you are individual HUF and firm, you are liable for this 44AD or 44AD provisions. But if you are LLP or other etc., then you have to ensure that your turnover is less than 1 crore rupees, then no audit is required. But if it is between more than 2 crores, then more than 2 crores, then that criteria will come into picture. So turnover is more than 1 crore, then you have to ensure that your cash receipts and cash payments are less than 5%, and then no audit is required. And if otherwise it is there, you are required to get this audit. So this chart will be helpful for you. So when you're doing this audit for this year, just go through this chart and ensure that this will be one of the helpful tool for you. So this has been given by one of the best friend who had prepared it. So I'm just thankful to him also for giving this chart to me. So I think this provision is clear to everybody. Moving to next to this, that is income from salary. Now there is ITR 1 and 2. That one clause was that not applicable was not there. So that person is now, it requires that that if a person is getting the salary, then salary he has to see that salary, whether it has come from the central government, state government, public sector undertaking, or if that person is a pensioner or not, or others. So if it doesn't fall in any other category, not applicable has been introduced here. So then not applicable has to be selected here. Secondly, if a person is filing the return because of some notice has come to him. So in response of notice, if a notice has come, so you have to report the UDIN number which has been made mandatory. Now if you see from 1st August, 1st October 2019, UDIN number has been made mandatory. So any notice which you get from the income tax department has to have this UDIN number, and this UDIN number can be this notice can be verified on the income tax department's portal. Any of this notice, either it is from the GST department, it is from the income tax department, it is from the TDS department, they should have this UDIN DIN number should be there. So if in response to this notice you are filing the return, if you don't mention here this DIN number, then your return won't be accepted, because this all notices are generated from the income tax department and the web portal, and if that DIN number is not available, then you will not be able to file the return. Income from house property, if the person is getting has rented out the property to any individual, and that person does not have a PAN number. So if the rent receipt is exceeding rupees 1 lakh, then we have to give the Aadhaar number. So basically, one of the area this is the area where the department wants to, this income tax department wants to capture that a person who is spending a lakh of rupees and the rent, and is that correspondingly it will be reconciled. It will be reconciling the information which he has submitted along with his return. So whether that actual information, that actual rent amount what he has received, and if a person is paying amount of rent which is exceeding 1 lakh, definitely he should have income, he should be more than taxable limit, and he should be filing the return. This is one of the area where which was left out. So that has to be the PAN or the Aadhaar number of the tenant has to be given in the return. Capital gains, this is the biggest change which has happened in the reporting. Now here one thing you have to ensure that when you are selecting the return of income, and then the status of the SSE is selected, whether that SSE is a resident or is a non-resident. So if a person is resident individual and he is claiming the exemption of long-term capital gains, then he has to fill up this schedule. Both schedules are same. So both the schedules are same, and if a person is a non-resident, then that income is taxable under section 115BD. So then he has to fill up that 115BD schedule. So here the required mandatory information is required to be given when you are claiming as a long-term capital gains which is exempt under the Income Tax Act. That is a 10% tax, that is your liable to pay the tax at the concessional rate of 10%. So you have to fill up the schedule. In this, now you are required to give the ISIN code number, that is the now name of the share or the equity oriented fund or the unit which you have sold. That ISIN number has to be quoted. The ISIN number is available on the BSE website. It is available on the mutual fund. When you get the mutual fund statement, there also ISIN number is available. You have to give the name of the company or the company which share is sold. Number of shares or unit has to be given. Sale price per share or per unit has to be given. Full value of consideration automatically will be computed, which will be the between the sale price and the number of shares. A cost of acquisition has to be given. Then again you have the shares which are held prior to 1st February 2018, because that provision was introduced on 1st February 2018. So you have to give the fair market value which was there as on 31st of January. Accordingly, your cost of acquisition will be cost of acquisition higher of the cost of acquisition or fair market value which was there on 31st January 2018 will be taken as your cost of for the purpose of this clause, and whatever the expenditure you have incurred over here, that is your brokerage which is given or your security transaction tax, etc., any such expenses which are there, that has to be shown in the column number 12, and total deductions will sum up to that, and the balance will be chargeable to capital gain. Now ISIN code here has been made mandatory because one of the reason here is that based on the aseptic transactions which have been filed, these all informations are available with the income tax department. We from the direct tax committee had requested that this you please give us this pre-filled XML which has all these details, but let us see, till now they have not provided. Yesterday I was just going to the website whether they have provided this information or not. It is not provided yet. So it is here you have to be very specific and very particular. Right now, when if a person is having n number of transactions in this, then it will be a challenging task. So for the person who is preparing the returns, and so I think that whenever this type of chart should be kept ready and given to the SSC itself to fill up and give it this information, it has to be asked from the SSA, and this information will be cross-checked with the stock exchange, because stock exchanges are filing the SFT statement and mutual fund industries are also filing the SFT statement. All this information is available, so cross-matching will be done. So once this cross-matching is done, and if your report is perfectly found okay, then there will be no errors which will be generated. So this is the important change which has been made. Then if a person has sold the property, and if the person has sold the property and the name of the buyer it was given till last year, the PAN or the Aadhaar number was not asked. So now if the person who is buying the property, either the PAN or the Aadhaar of the buyer has to be given, and basically this property is bought by two persons, then the breakup also has to be given, the address of the property, etc., has to be given here. So this information is just to verify that whether that person who has purchased the property has filed the return or not, because here basically what is happening, department has identified that there are many property transactions which are huge property transactions, transactions are being done, and that people are not filing the return. So PAN number or the Aadhaar number is mandatory if the tax is deducted under section 194 IA or is quoted by the buyer in the document. In case of more than one buyer, then you have to increase the specified percentage of share. So just this detail you have to take it from the buyer of the property, or it may be written in the agreement. So be very specific and be very particular in providing the details. Then this year that in tax audit 43B changes has been made. That is, one more category has been added, that if the interest has been paid to the non-banking financial company and that interest has not been paid to that NBFC on or before the due date of the filing of the return, then you have to disallow that interest. So if any such disallowance is there, here in this IPR, whatever the disallowances you are doing it in the tax audit, same disallowance under that specific section and the specific clause has to be mentioned here, because it is going to be reconciled with your tax audit report. And though the pre-fill utility is going to be issued, let us see now how this pre-fill utility is working, because the time is yet to come, and how these informations are captured in the system, that has to be seen. So here, if your any provident fund and provident fund disallowance is there, or any other this expenses which is related to 43B is there, specific cell has been given, specific clauses has been given. You cannot just sum up in that sum up to all together in that specified clause and report it, because if you sum up all these clauses and report it in sum of all these expenses and report it in one clause, definitely you will be getting the demand for the short payment of taxes or short payment of disallowances. Then on 1st of November, this incentive was given for the vehicle, that is those person who are purchasing vehicle for within that specified period, that is from first, I think it is 1st of November or 1st of October, I do not recollect it, but then you are entitled to claim additional 15% depreciation. Now suppose if a person who is doing is in the business of hiring of car and all, so 30 he is eligible for 30% depreciation plus 15% additional depreciation is entitled to because of this concessional rate which has been given. So that 45% sale was not, this 45% sale was not that which has been added. So whenever you are claiming any additional depreciation because of this, you have to specify in that 45% plus plant and machinery block which has been added. So that information has to go in that. Then those who have this section schedule DIE is mandatory for all type of assets. So any investment which is made within this extended period or the grace time period which was given, that is from 1st April 2020 to 31st of July 2020, if any amount is deposited, then you have to mention it over here, and the amount which is paid prior to prior to 31st of March, that has to be said, this segregation has to be given. So because whatever amount which is deposited by the SSC is deposited within that period, that will be considered in this year, and that same amount should not be claimed as a deduction in the subsequent assessment year. Then section 80D requires to answer your specific question whether you are paid, you have any person who is a senior citizen in your family, and if it is a senior person is there, and whether you have paid any mediclaim has been paid of that any family members. Then the special, there are separate cells which are given, that is paid if the any mediclaim amount is paid on the for the senior family members, or you have paid any amount for preventive health checkups. Then there are specific cells which has been created there in the return. You have to specify the amount over there in that particular cells. Then person who is holding any directorship in any company, then the scope of this disclosure has been modified. That is, the name of the company has to be given, the type of the company wherein he is a director, whether that is a domestic company or any unlisted company or listed company. PAN number of that person has to be given, company has to be given, whether the share is listed or unlisted, then the deal number has to be given. So these drop down box were not available. We had to write it till last year, but now you have to select it from the drop down box itself. Then if you are holding, a person is holding any shares in unlisted company, then he has to give this information. Again, in the type of company wherein earlier you had to mention it, it is basically it is required for unlisted shares which are held in the unlisted companies, and not for the listed companies. So if a person is holding the shares in the listed company, they don't have to give these details. Then this is pass-through income, that is section 115U and 115UB. There was an amendment which was made in the last budget, wherein the income was taxable in the specifically this income is related to the REIT funds or the investment funds which are set up under section 115U and UB. So this year there the changes have been made, that earlier the trusts were taxable, this investment trusts were taxable, and subsequently they were transferring the income to the unit holders, and that unit holders were claiming the exemption. But now this the provision has been changed. So this now income is taxable in the hands of the investor, not in the hands of the investment trust. So any income which you have got, either it is a share of loss. So whatever the loss it was there in the earlier years, which was declared by the unit trust, that unit trust will be transferring the loss to that specific individual or the specific investor, and that investor can now claim the loss in their income tax return. So if any such loss is claimed, then you are required to disclose in that specified cell whether that loss is related to your short-term capital gains, your short-term related to your dividend, etc. So this has to be disclosed separately, and your net subsequently your net income will be taken for the taxation purpose. And if even any TDS has been deducted on that income, that amount of TDS also has to be mentioned in that specific income. So this schedule PTI is mandatory if the person is getting the income from such type of trust. In a similar way, whatever the loss which has been carried forward by that rate funds or that investment trust funds, then whether that all related income is related to your short-term capital gains or long-term capital loss or whatever is there, that also you have to segregate it and you have to give it separately. So your normal loss, what is you have declared it, and what you are getting it from the through this pass-through income, both has to be segregated and that has to be shown separately, and accordingly the net total loss or total loss which is you are eligible, that will be allowed to be set off. Then the person who are getting the income from a life insurance business. Now life insurance business income is taxable under the section 115B. 5B. The computation, this computation schedule section E has been added particularly in the computation of income, wherein now it requires that if you have made any provision in the balance sheet, in the balance sheet which relates to your 43B payments or your additions or deductions which are required to be made on account of section 32, section 43B, then whatever your net profit or loss which is there, or addition or deduction which is there, and net income has to be offered for tax. So this schedule is to be filled in case the person who is having income from life insurance business. So that is made mandatory. Then about ITR 6, there's income received from foreign company. If the foreign company is receiving any income, which is basically, I'm not able to see the slides fully. I think I have to minimize it, right? Please minimize this. I am not able to see this slide. So if a person who is filling ITR 6 and if a person has got any income under section 115B, then basically it is related to income related to your capital gains, etc., and that is chargeable at a separate rate. So in schedule OS, whatever income which is related to your data stated in section 115BD, because that has to be stated separately because that is chargeable at a separate rate. Schedule SH1 that is related to share capital is not applicable in case of section 8 companies or the companies which are limited by guarantee, because they don't have any capital, they don't have in their company which is limited or not limited by share. And startups are also exempted provided they are registered under DPIT and the requirements of that particular notification has been fulfilled. Then only they can then this SH1 schedule related to your share is not required to be filled up. Then verifier of the income tax return will now have to be additionally given the residential address, and the DIN number has to be given if the person is a direct. Till last year the residential address was not mandatory, but now residential address is made mandatory. So verifier of the income tax return has to be given in the residential address has to be given. Then if a person is eligible for transfer pricing covered by transfer pricing, then he has to fill up this any addition or deduction which is made on account of the secondary adjustment, then he is liable to pay the differential tax. So he has this schedule transfer pricing essay has to be filled up required to be filled up. So any income this tax any tax which is paid on account of this differential additional income and liability has arisen, that has to be filled up in that particular schedule. ITR 7, this has the maximum number of changes because the government has identified that there are many NGOs and trusts which are evading the taxes on account of this. So basically here it requires now the any project, if it is run by that specific trust or NGO, then that whether the nature of activity has to be given, the details of the project has to be given, and if that project is approved under the Income Tax Act, then details about this under which section it is approved, when the registration was obtained, all this information is required to be given, and details of the other registration, that is a trust may be registered in other act also other than the Income Tax Act. So trust may be registered under the Trust Act, trust may be liable for paying GST also. So all such information is required. Any wherever the registration has been obtained other than the Income Tax Act, the details has to be given, and this information will be cross-checked. Whatever the figures which are given will be maybe cross-verified. And if you are aware that now all the trusts are required to be re-registered, and that the registration of permanent registration which was there under the Income Tax Act has been done away with. So this last date was 30th of September, but due to this pandemic, the notification has come that the date has been extended, that 3 months time limit has been given, that is which is from 1st October 2020 to 31st of December to 31st December 2020. So the trust will have to get them re-registered and they will get the fresh registration number. And any donation which has been received as part of corpus fund, disclosure requirement has been enhanced. The detail has to be given in the return itself. Then 2 points have been removed from the part part B, that is total income, that is corpus donation to other trust or institution chargeable under explanation 2, because earlier this exemption was available, now that exemption has been withdrawn, so that was nullifying it. And then deduction under section 10AA, this has been removed from the ITR 7, and one new point has been added, that is 115 TD and 115 T and interest what is payable. Basically, when the trust is merged or trust is dissolved, etc., then whatever the assets which are there, then on that you have to pay the tax at the maximum marginal rate, etc. Though I am not doing the work of the trust, I am not aware of much of this provision, but those who are doing the work of this trust, basically if any info tax is payable, please specify in that particular cell or particular trust. Now bank account refund, that is now you can claim the refund, and then you have to give the refund details in 2 bank account details. That is, if your first bank account is if the refund is rejected in your first bank account, then the refund can be credited to the second bank account. Then here it is, now it is required mandatorily that your account has to be pre-validated first. So all those who are filling up the information, here you have to, 2 things has to be taken into consideration, that whatever bank account you are selecting here for issue of refund, that account has to be pre-validated. And here you have to give all the information of all the bank accounts which you have held during the year. That criteria still pertains, so that criteria has not been done away with. So that has to be required to be given. Minimum 1 account should be selected for refund credit, that is required, but you can give 2 accounts as the option has been added. And if there is a non-resident SSC, and if it doesn't have any bank account in India, or that person doesn't want that a refund should be credited to that bank account, and he wants that refund should be credited in the international bank account or the foreign bank account, then he can provide the details of that SWIFT code, name of the bank, country of location, this number has to be done. And if he wants then again in more than 1 account, then he can add the rows. That is option is also given here. So basically that information is to be filled up if the person wants to claim the refund in the foreign bank account. This was not available last year, but this has been added here. Then there are other changes in field, that is if the interest income is chargeable at the concessional rate on account of DTA, then you have to report in that specified clause. Foreign companies who are reporting getting income from royalty or fees from technical services, they are chargeable at a concessional rate. Then you have to specifically give that information in that particular clause, because if you don't provide that information in that particular clause, your income will be chargeable at the maximum margin rate. Regarding UDIN, that we have already discussed, companies which are opting for alternate tax. Again, now the company can opt for alternate tax. That is, I think this you had a full session discussion on this. I'm not going much into detail, but those who are opting for any such type of alternate tax mechanism, you ensure that before filing the return of income, you fill up form number 10 IC, which is been notified, which is available on the Income Tax Department website. So you have to fill up that form. Then only your this income tax at the concessional rate will be eligible, and your return will be processed at that rate. If you fail to fill up this form 10 IC, then you will not be eligible to claim that alternate tax benefit. Section 115 AB relating to taxing of the mutual funds units which are purchased in the foreign currency by offshore fund, then they are also liable to at a concessional rate of 10%. Then that has to be specified, that income has to be specified in that particular cell. Then basically this is related to builders and developers, that is ITR 5 and ITR 6 will require to now to report. That is basically if a person is a developer and he has received the occupational certificate. Now this criteria was added last year. That is, if a person who is a builder or the developer and he is holding the flats, constructed flats as a stock in trade, and the 2 years time limit has been over, then he has to offer notional rent on that such property which is taxable under the head income from house property. But if a person is holding that property and the business completion certificate, the building completion certificate or the occupation certificate which has been received, and that 2 years time limit has not expired, then also is required to report such details, and that will be treated as SOP. You have to report it as an SOP, and this information is mandatory. Any disallowance any disallowance which is related to section 40BA, which is related to AOP, then that has to be disclosed separately. The new clause has been added. Acknowledgement, there is a change in the acknowledgement now. So ITR, we basically ITR 1 to ITR 7, excluding ITR 6. So when you are filing the return of income, now if you are not verifying it online at that time, then this type of acknowledgement will be generated, which will be is called as income tax return verification form. It won't have any details regarding your income, your tax payment, etc. It will only have your name, details, PAN number, your return which is filed, your acknowledgement number, etc. And if you want to send this this signed copy to Bengaluru, then you can just sign it and you can send it acknowledgement to Speed Post. One biggest change here it has happened is your date of completion of e-verification will be treated as your date of filing. So be very particular, be very specific, because whatever your date of filing will be your when you complete your e-verification. So e-verification, when it gets over, that will be treated your date of filing. And suppose now your 30th of November as of now is your date of filing the return, the due date is there, and you have uploaded the return on 30th of November. You have the time limit of 120 days to say send this acknowledgement to Bangalore, or subsequently you may do that e-verification on the next date. The date of filing will be considered as the next day, so you will be liable for the this late fee or the any late fee or the 234. So once this e-verification is done, the new acknowledgement will be generated, and there is a change in the acknowledgement this year. That is the acknowledgement. Last year you had all these criteria B1 to B4, where you had all these details were compiled in a single cell. But now here the income, your tax payment, your losses, your additional tax payment, etc., everything has been segregated. And once you have filed the return, you have not done the e-verification, then your that old acknowledgement generated. Once your e-verification is completed, then this you will have to download the new acknowledgement. This acknowledgement, this is the format of the new acknowledgement. So department has come up with so many notices has been issued. That notices are coming that you have not filed the returns. So any such notices received or not, you can verify it on the income tax department web portal. So just go on the compliance portal. You can go there, and this e-campaign which is started. So in this e-campaign, if it shows 0, means there is no notices which has been issued against you for filing of the returns or any transaction which has been done. So if any details are available over here, then you have to respond to that notices, and accordingly you will be required to file the return. So this is the this area wherein you have to, when this is the place where you can find and whether the any notices are issued. So this compliance has to be done. The e-campaign will show you the details of which returns are pending, and it also shows you the history of your e-campaign. So whatever the things have been done, validations and verification rules has been made applicable. So without validation and verification rules, if your XML won't be generated. So this earlier, what it was happening, that when you were uploading the return at that time, after uploading the return, you were getting the errors. But now this has been changed. So there are 3 types of errors which are there in the system. That is validation errors: validation A, validation B, and validation C. Validation A area is that basically when you have selected any of this ITR, any ITR is selected, and whatever the information, mandatory information is required to be filled up, and you have not filled up that information, then the XML won't be generated. It will not allow you to generate the XML, and once the XML is not generated, you will not be allowed to file the return. Second category is about the B type of errors. So B type of errors, what it says, that it will give you the validation error that your XML is generated, but XML is not fit for processing the return of income. It will so if you upload this XML, then there will be the notice under section 139(9) which is going to be issued. So I would always recommend that, see that if such type of errors are there, you just rectify that errors, then only upload. Otherwise, what will happen? 139(9) notice is going to come, and you will have to redo the work again. So, and that again, the time limit of 15 days is being given to rectify this notice, and if you don't reply within that 15 days, your this return will be removed from the system. So that basically this care has to be taken. And third category of error is about the C category of error. C category of error, basically it is related to the software errors. There is now, if you see the statistical information, is there almost around 87 to 88% people are using the private software utility. I'm coming on to that. So private software utility provider has to register themselves on the income tax web portal, and they will be given one code. that code it should be there in the XML, then only that person's utility is valid, otherwise that person's utility is not valid. So here you have to ensure that the software providers, the department is keeping a track of all the software providers, that is whose error, what is the quality of data which has been generated through the use of that software. And if the department finds out that the quality of the data which is supplied by that software provider is not correct, then not up to the mark, and what that is the errors are being generated for processing, then that software provider will be given the warning to verify, to rewrite the software or modify the software accordingly. And accordingly, if the software is not modified by them, the licenses will be cancelled. So this is basically related to it. So why the reasons, there are specific reasons, that is why the errors are happening in the return. So basically what happens that if your computation of your income is there or refund is different and what is entered. So whenever you are filling up the return ITR, you just verify once before uploading it. So you might be having the rough idea that what amount of income, what should be your income and what should be the refund which is generated, because basically we in the mind we definitely compute that this much amount should be the income and this much amount should be the refund which has to be issued. So if any variance is there, so where exactly that variance has happened, so you need to first verify that before uploading the return and ensure that this you are satisfied first fully, then only you upload the return. Accurate and complete filling of the relevant column is the main area, because if you don't fill up the information which is required, and even if you fill up the information, that information is required to be filled up in that specified column. If that income is not reported in the correct column, then that it will result to the additional liability, or it will result to your incorrect calculation of taxation or incorrect calculation of income. Then various checkpoints are there. That is basically salary from all the employees, irrespective of whether Form 16 has been issued or not. That has to be entered. Income details of ITR schedule, salary should be filled up. Interest income on fixed deposit, saving deposit has to be specified in the. This is one of the examples where the errors which has been happening. So if you are getting the income, if you have earned the SSC is earned interest in reporting income under receive the income from savings bank interest, then that has to be specified in the separate column which has been given, because basically that interest is linked with the section 80 TED design. This is one of the sample details which are there. So basically, if you report the income correctly in the correct cell, then definitely the deduction will be allowed. One of the biggest and the second, one of the extreme cases which has happened, the person had claimed the refund of the TDS which was there in 26 days, and he reported a nil income. So report income reported was nil, and he had claimed the full tax. So that refund was treated as defective. Then the question which was answered at that time, that I don't have any income taxable, because whatever the income I have got, I have spent that income. There is no chargeable income. So here you have to whatever. So whenever you are claiming, you are having such type of this deduction. So your income has to be reported in income clause. Your deduction has to be reported in the deduction clause, and accordingly your final income may come to nil. Then only the Form 26 says that TDS credit which are given, that will be granted. So this is one of the area where, means I have just given you just example. There are many such things which are happening. So late fees, definitely if you file the return, late fees applicable. Now penal interest is there to 1%. The concessional rate has been given, that is if the tax liability is less than 1 lakh, and if you don't pay the time limit has been increased. So that option you have to say losses cannot be carried forward. Deduction in the section 10A, that is income related deductions are not allowed if you file the return belatedly. So that precaution has to be taken. Then there are various alternative mechanisms which are available for e-verification. That is, you can do your e-verification to net banking, provided your bank account is linked with the PAN, and you can opt for this facility. So generally most of the accounts are linked with the bank through EVC. That is, if your bank account is pre-validated on the income tax department portal, you can just generate the EVC, and that EVC can be used for e-verification, provided your cell number is registered with the bank account. Same cell number is registered, because same cell number should be there. You can do this pre-validation against Demat accounts. The criteria remains the same, that is, you need to pre-validate your Demat account on the ITD portal. Then through registered email ID and mobile number also can be done, but this is this type of SSCs are eligible only if they have the income which is less than 5 lakhs, and there should not be any refund, which is refund should be less than or equal to 100 rupees. This is the, and lastly but not the least, that is to Aadhaar OTP. That is provided you have linked your Aadhaar with the ITD portal, and it is linked with the mobile number. So those persons who are not having the Aadhaar and their mobile number is not linked or mobile number has changed, then they have to get this updated by visiting the Aadhaar center again. Then there is a circular number 13 of 2020, which has given the relaxation for one-time relaxation for verification. So those whose verification of the return has not been done or is pending from assessment year 15-16 to assessment year 2019-20, they can do the e-verification. All these modes which were discussed earlier is available for the e-verification. Verification has to be completed by 30th September 2020, and they have to process the return by 31st of December. This relaxation will not apply to where the department has already taken the action. That is, your return has been removed from the system. That type of assessees cannot take the benefit of this notification. But one important thing has to be is there that interest on such, if the return of income, there is a refund in that return, and you have not done the e-verification at that time, and now you are doing e-verification at this time, the interest will be given to you. The assessee will get the interest from the date on which the e-verification has been done, not from the date of the original from the 1st April of that assessment year. So this has to be done. So this is the benefit has to be taken. So those assessees who are not done, you can just take the benefit of this notification. Changes on in Form 26A, now 26AS has been renamed. It is now called as Annual Information Statement, pursuant now from 1st of June. The changes have been made in the 26AS. Now your 26AS is called as Annual Information Statement. Earlier, we were getting the details only related to your tax deducted and tax collected source and some specified transactions which were reported. Now this your annual information statement will be divided into Part A and Part B. Part A will have your Aadhaar number, your date of birth, mobile number, email ID. Anything you need to correct this, you have to file form number 49A with the team facilitation center. You can update it online also through your digital signature on the team website. The corrections of the PAN can be done. Form 49A is the form which is notified for correction of the details. So you have to just get these things corrected, because all notices are now going to come through on your email ID, and on your messages with information will be given on SMSs. So you have to ensure that this is updated all the time. Whenever there is a change in the address, whenever there is a change in the mobile number, email ID, this has to be updated. Then secondly, this Part B will give you the information about your tax deduction and tax collected, about your specified financial transactions, about relating to your payment of taxes, your pending demands on the income tax department's website, any pending refunds on the income tax department website, any pending income tax proceedings also will be disclosed over here. Any completed proceedings are there, that information will be given, and any other information related to 114I of sub-rule 2. Now this information says that now this information will be given. Now what is this information? This has been shared yesterday. That is yesterday our Prime Minister has given that this type of transactions are now covered to SFT. So these people, any payment of educational fees or donation which has been given exceeding 1 lakh by any schools, they are receiving it, they will have to file SFT statement. Electricity consumption, so electricity company, those who assesses whose electricity bill are coming more than 1 lakh, then they have to, this electricity department will have to report such transactions. Domestic person who has done the domestic business, the person who has purchased the ticket for domestic or business class air travel or foreign travel, then that type of SSA, this ticket sellers will have to file the returns. Payment to hotels above rupees 20,000. So those who have booked the hotels exceeding 20,000, hotels are covered now to file this SFT statement. Then purchase of jewelry or white goods exceeding rupees 1 lakh. These people we are covered now under for SFT filing. Deposits or credits in current or bank account above rupees 50 lakhs. These bank will have to report these transactions now. Deposits or credits in non-current accounts above rupees 25 lakhs. Payments, payment of property tax above rupees 20,000 per annum. Property tax people will have this, BMC authorities will have to file this SFT statement. Life insurance premium above rupees 50,000. So life insurance company will have to file SFT statement. Health insurance or premiums relating to a mediclaim, etc., exceeding rupees 20,000 rupees, they have to file the SFT statement. Any share transaction, demat accounts, bank lockers, even bank lockers also will have to has to be informed. So bank will have to inform about details about all the bank lockers which are held by the by the person. So this is now made mandatory. So if you see, and from all areas, basically the details have been captured and details have been covered. And now it has been made mandatory that compulsory filing of return by the persons having bank transaction above rupees 30 lakhs. So even if you have done any transaction exceeding 30 lakhs, you are not liable to file the return from assessment year 20, because the details have not been declared much yet. All professionals will be required to file the returns. All businesses having turnover above 50 lakhs only, even if they don't have any taxable income, they are required to file the return. Then payment of rent on above rupees 40,000. So these are the yesterday's information which are shared by the finance minister, prime minister. So these are covered. So times are challenging, days are challenging, and a government is having each and every information will be having each and every information. So as a chartered accountant, as a professional, which it is our duty to ensure that all this information is being passed on to the SSC. And if the SSC is not willing to cooperate, or is not willing to do any give such type of information, then I would always advise that please don't file the returns, because now the accountability on our part has also increased. So avoid the last days. See that on the last day, whatever things that happens on the auto mode. And we have seen many cases wherein the person whose audit report is being uploaded is of any other person, and the tax audit report, the subsequent attachments are of any other person. So these things are happening. So don't take these things lightly, and this may happen in any cases. So basically it is the returns, because what happens that generally the staff prepares the returns and they do the uploading work. So they do the uploading work. So ensure that the returns, whatever is filed by the staff, is been filed correctly, and ensure that correctness is before uploading, because it may happen that there may be mistakes, and now faceless assessment etc. have started, wherein you don't have the option to meet and go and explain the persons sufficiently that what the mistake has happened. So this will be a big mistake or big blunder may also happen. Ensure that you have the sufficient backup and accurate backup which is available, because we have n number of transactions which are n number of files in our system. So whatever the returns which is filed finally, and what is the final return, that the information you keep and information in the return, all other details should be deleted, because at the time when the faceless assessments are started, if any information is sought by the department, and if you submit any incorrect information, again this will be a problem for the SSC and also for the channel. And it is always advisable that you have one hard copy. Don't depend too much on the system, because you never know when the system will crash. And basically you can go for cloud storage also, because our institute has also come up with this type of benefits for the benefit of the members. You can take the services of the institute also, wherein this type of service providers are available, and there's a reasonable cost. So that you can keep the data on the cloud, and you should always ensure that you have a sufficient backup which is kept outside the office of the group, because something may happen in your office, either flood may come or earthquake may come or fire may happen in the office, because you never know the contingency events which are going to happen. So basically one backup should be available always outside the office. Don't depend much on the working. Delete all the workings which are created from time to time, to ensure that the latest figures are only available and which are used for the returns filing, so that the correct information is generated. Nobody is going to reward you for the number of workings you are done, but definitely they will hold you when you are found guilty, because whatever the works you have done are never appreciated, and whatever the works, any mistake which is there has been pointed out at any time. So, and also return generated by private software providers should not be considered blindly accurate and final. Validation utilities which are provided by the income tax department is more or less control oriented. Final computation definitely needs to be physically verified before filing. Income tax department's utility are more and more reliable. So any utility, any returns which is generated from the private software provider, you can just open that XML on the utilities which are provided by the department, download the utility of that particular ITR, say open that XML, you can verify it, and one recalculate button has been given on the on that utility. Once you click on the recalculate button, automatically all your figures will be, your computation will be ready, your 143.1 information will be ready. So that will be a 143.1 which you are going to get it from the department. So if that and figures and your return figures matches, then you can rely on the software. But I think whenever there is the update in software, this you should use this. So this will be your cross-checking of information that whatever is there, at least 1 or 2 returns of a particular utility has to be checked whenever there is update or whenever you are uploading. So don't try to override the utilities, because there are many professionals which are seen, they have the idea to modify the utility to suit their as per the requirement. They can modify the utilities in such a way that the income tax computation can also be modified. Don't try to do this thing, because definitely if you try to tamper with any data which is there, the government data, then you could be liable for that. The utilities are at the time of processing, definitely any this overriding is done or any changes is done in the utility which is specified, will definitely will catch hold of, and that the return will not be processed, it will be thrown by the system. So provision relating to assessment, that is basically any 143(1) adjustment has to be done. The notice will be issued to you first, and it will give you the option that whether this we have found this is the incorrect information you have submitted, and what we are having this information, these are not mismatching. So once you agree with that, then you have to file the revised XML, and you can revise the revised XML can be filed. If any 139(9) notice is generated, then also you have to file the revised XML, and that return will be treated as filed on when it is uploaded. If assessing officer finds out any unexplained income at a time of assessment, then if you sell that against this income, these expenses are to be claimed, then that won't be allowed. 115BE, which charges this in that any unexplained income at a higher rate of 60%, and chartered accountants are also held accountable. So if any notice is now UBI number has become mandatory, so at the time of submitting any audit report or any such report, UBI number has to be quoted, and this complaint may go to the institute also, and the department people have also started acting fast on the chartered accountant. Ultimately, guilty chartered accountants can be there is a fine penalty of ₹10,000 for submitting incorrect information on the part of chartered accountants, and also as a professional misconduct on the part of our institute also. Though you have the option to file an appeal against this penalty order to the ITAT, but then this is not good. E-proceedings are now extended to all scrutiny assessments. Higher penalty for default in furnishing the AIR. So if you're not furnished, the department is also facing certain issues. Basically, the non-filers or the stock filers have increased in number of around almost around 2 crore people have stopped filing the returns of income. Now, department is identifying why this 2.2 crore people have stopped filing the returns. This is basically the data which is derived. Non-filers also includes the top filers. Basically, they had the income, but due to certain exemptions and deductions, the incomes, or due to tax incentives which are available, they have stopped filing the returns. So if there is any such case, if it is happening in case of SSC, the person has shifted or the person doesn't have any taxable income, then it is better that you file a letter along to the assessing officer that this income is now below the taxable income limit and is not liable to file the return, or the person has left the country and doesn't have any income which is taxable in India, and that is why it's not liable to file the return. So basically that information is available to them. So if any action is taken against that such non-filers, so that will be helpful. Prosecution has been launched against the willful evaders of the tax. Social and natural calamities are also one of the reasons, because due to this the date has been extended, and this year is the biggest challenge, because this year you will have to deal with 2 assessment years. Assessment year 2019-20, the last date is to 30th of September, and assessment year 2021, last date is 30th of November. So both the returns may be filed simultaneously. The provisions are different for each of the years. So this is a challenge. So be very specific. Section 80 AC has been introduced for willful defaulters. That is the person who has defaulted in filing the return, and subsequently if the income has been found out and the tax evasion has been found out, then definitely it provides for prosecutions, provision for imprisonment up to 2 years if the person doesn't file the return of income. If the income exemption is given, if the return is connected till the end of the assessment year, or if the tax payable is up to 30,000 rupees, but companies have been excluded. All the companies have to file the return even they have the income or not. But subsequently, if they have not filed the income and any tax which has been found out, even a single rupee tax has been found out, then the action can be taken. This is what the provision says. So default at present, the department is not taking any such actions against such defaulters, and the maximum limit is basically up to 10 lakhs. They have not taken any action, but the law says that up to 3,000 rupees, the government has the power to take the action against such this. Basically, it is to target is to prevent the misuse of the exemption which has been provided based on the tax payable, and also to ensure that the Benami properties which are held by the company are being reported. Any further help required, there is a call center number, dedicated call center number, dedicated either tools are there available on the ITD website, which are there. You can take the help of the tools. If you're stuck up in any problem or any area which you are not able to do it on your own, then that you can go to the tools of the ITD website which are available. You can have any queries relating to your processing, etc. Then our institute also is making representations from time to time. So any issues which are not resolved or which are problem which have been created, then you can definitely send the email to our email ID of the institute, that is btc@ici.in, wherein all these queries are being. We have frequent meeting with the CBDT members and all. So these issues are being taken up at the central level, and whatever the problems which are faced by the members, we are definitely trying to sort it out. So these are the dedicated call center numbers you can call if you are related to your income tax queries, your rectification or refund or refiling of returns. The specific you can use this number. These are the toll-free numbers which are available. Future is definitely new utilities are more or less based on the information which are there. It is acting as a self-assessment. If verified properly, if you check it properly, then definitely it will give you the details of what the assessment the 143.1 is going to come. We have faceless, now we are days have come that we have faceless assessment, and one of the reasons that is the reporting of unreconciled transactions in the form of 26 AS and the returns are submitted is the main tool of the scrutiny, which will be the basically the area where the department is going to take up the matters, and whatever your returns are there, the department is storing. CPC is the preserver of the information. All the informations are collected from the SSC, and it is on the valid source and is authenticated source from by the SSC, and this information cannot be denied in future. All the returns are available with the CPC. CPC is the preserver of information. It is a mediator between the SSC and the assessing officer, and it acts as a preserver, and all the information related to the defaults which has been generated on this based on the analysis which has been done. It compares your data with the previous year and the current year, and all these informations are this permutation and combinations are done, and based on this, that is for the notices are being generated. So this is also a cause of concern. Be very specific, be very particular. I think I have tried to cover the best possible manner whatever things I like to share. Some of you might have liked it, some have not liked it, but future is it. You have to be with it. You have to accept it. You cannot do the today's work, today's job with yesterday's method and with the for the tomorrow's business. You have to change yourself. And you have to accept it. And if any mistake has happened, then mistake should be rectified. Either it in if you rectify the mistake in time, definitely there are many advantage of it. And today I think pollution has started. So this is the right time on the right day. So if any mistake has happened, and I also from the bottom of my heart, if I have said anything or if I have forgotten anything, any mistakes has happened to me, please forgive me from that. If you have any questions, yeah, we can definitely take you up. But this definition, these are basically the views for the my views for discussion purpose, and it is should not be treated as any legal interpretation, because this may depend or change from time to time. Act is final. Basically, what happens? Changes are happening. It first refer to a act, refer to the act. Act is final. Act is final, and basically before advising and giving any advice to your client, just don't blindly rely on the knowledge which you have. Just refer to the provision, and you can give the correct advice. Thank you very much, everybody, for your patience hearing, and thank you once again, Ahmedabad's branch, for giving me this opportunity. And we can take up the questions. Time is definitely there. We can definitely take up.
Thank you, Avinash bhai. Participants, you are requested to post your queries. We are having around 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Enough time is there.
Yes, there is one question. An individual has a turnover of less than 1 crore and profit is also less than 8%. He has never filed return as per.
1 minute, I cannot hear the voice. 1 minute. 1 minute. I am not able to hear the voice. 1 minute.
So is it now audible, sir?
1 minute. Yeah, yes, tell me now.
Okay, Mr. Wait.
Hello.
Yes, now
Is
you
it
can speak. I
audible?
can hear.
An individual has a turnover of less than 1 crore and profit is less than 8%. He has never filed return as per section 44 AD. Then audit will not be required. Is it my understanding is right? Malay Bhatt
Perfect.
has asked.
Perfect. If he's reporting profit at the rate of that specified percentage of 8% for cash transaction and non-cash transaction at 6%, then he's not required to get this accounts audited. Provided he falls within that the category of that, he should not be a professional. He should not be a professional. Because professional, there is a limit of 50 lakhs rupees, and he has to report at the rate of 50%. And he has to see that just that certain category of the business has also been shifted to professional category. So that also has to be seen.
I think the question was, yes, he wants to clear that the turnover is less than 90 lakhs and the profit percentage are 5%. Is it okay without audit?
5% if it is there, then he is required to get the accounts audited. It is mandatory.
So if it is less than 8%, in that case it would be required.
Yes,
Assuming it is non-cash. Assuming
yes,
it is non.
Yes.
Assuming it is cash basically. Next is it mandatory to respond the e-campaign notice?
Yes,
Is
yes.
there
Any notices which has been received from the department has to be there, because now one thing here you have to remember that your notices which are received from the any notices, all notices are going to come on your email end, and if you do not respond to the notice, it will be treated as non-compliance of notice, and the penalty of rupees this 5,000 or 10,000, whatever is there, that is liable. Even if no submission, even if you have the date of hearing has been fixed and you are unable to comply within that period, the letter of extension also has to be uploaded that I need the extension of time. Or if you don't respond to that, then the penalty non-compliance will be there.
So next question is regarding that if the turnover is only 5 lakhs, but there is a loss.
I think in case, according to what my view is, it says that it's positive income should be there. So if positive income is less than 6% or 8%, if the loss is there, then it is not covered by 44 AD. That is my view.
So in that case, no audit is required.
It is not required to be done.
Because another view is that in that case, audit should be done because loss is stated as less than 6% or 8%.
No. My view is that it is not required. You can refer to the these judgments also which are available, and there are supporting judgments also which are there.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Next, Bishan bhai.
Sir, now there are no questions, but if there are any questions, we will send across to Avinash bhai. We will
No
send
problem.
you, sir.
My email ID is there. You can send it to and I think presentation will be presentation is already sent to the Ahmedabad branch. You can share it with. You can upload it on the website
Sure,
also.
Yes, we are going to do it.
And any issues relating to e-filing, relating to any issue, you can just send a mail to the DTC@ICAR. We are regularly representing it, and we'll try our level best to get it resolved. Last month also we have sent almost around 35 points representation which has gone, and definitely when we have a face-to-face interaction, these issues are getting resolved, and this is the result what the problems we are facing 5 years back, and how smoothly on the last days also the returns are going. If you see the statistical data on the last day, every hour 2 lakhs returns are being filed, and around 35 to 40 lakhs returns are being filed on a daily basis smoothly without any interruption. So this is the achievement of the income tax department, and basically hats off to them for such an initiative which has been done. People are getting
going to be difficult. I think this time the audit and not audit and all the things, the due date, it is common due date. So
yes,
I think
yes.
this time
there are a couple of questions.
That the due date will be extended, but we should not take such chance, because now if the details are available and the free time is available, we should use that free time and get this work done. Because, and again, it will be a biggest challenge, because what happens, GST audits are also there, and all our deadlines are fixed. So basically, we are living on the deadlines, and 31st of October is basically Diwali time at that time, and the tax audit due date are also there. So that again is a biggest challenge, that otherwise we will not be able to enjoy the festival also. So
there is one more question.
Client see the due date only. If the due date is scheduled in October. So that is
there is couple of questions One is if return is filed on 30th November, but e-verified on 1st December, then date
First
of filing
December.
of return is considered as 1st December
Yes, yes,
or
first December.
return file.
First
Okay,
December.
okay. The
These
second
changes
question is revision. Yes, sir. The second is revision of the income tax return possible in case where original ITR 4 filed and SSE want to revise it as ITR 3. Is it
no,
possible?
system won't allow you.
You have to file the same
Done.
type of return.
Yes, yes. System is not allowing you because that you cannot be changed. So it is better. Basically, I would always recommend that you use the higher version so that any revision has to be done. That can be done only because all the information is only some additional information is being sought, and other is nil and not applicable only. So you can just find nil not applicable, and you can this will be helpful.
Perfect. Next question is if turnover is rupees 5 lakh and profit is less than 8%, then is audit required
Yes.
or not?
Yes, yes. A profit less than 8%, yes, it is required.
Now,
In case of person having, yes, in case of person having interest and remuneration is more than 1 crore, whether audit of 44 AB will require no proprietorship business. There is no business in his proprietorship.
So see, basically there are two views because earlier, now what happens that you can be covered by this criteria of 1 crore to 5 crore, and in that 5% transaction related to that is not there. So I think from my view, it is not that the remuneration from partnership firm, and it is not covered by, it should not be, tax audit is not applicable to them. But some of the professionals are of the view that tax audit is applicable. But according to me, it is not applicable.
the limit is now 44 AB, it is 5 crore. The AD
Yeah.
is 2 crore.
Yes.
So they are between 2 to 5.
2 to 5 automatically we are removed from that. Automatically,
so even if it is 2% or 3% profit, and assuming that the cash transactions are less than 5%, then no audit, nothing. They are out.
Basically, what happens when he gets the remuneration, then there is no claim of expenses under the remuneration. Remuneration is allowed for this charge offered fully for tax. Even if some expenses are, the expenses would be less than minimum amount. So that
not remuneration, not remuneration.
Share of profit is exempt. So exempt is not, according to me, not required to file.
No. The turnover is that I was discussing that 3 crores or 4 crores, and the cash transactions are less than 5%. So they are outside the scope of 44 AB and AD both.
Yes.
Whatever may be the book picture, that without audit, it
even if 1% profit is there, they are not required to get the audit done.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next, Vishan bhai.
Sunil bhai, the next question is SSE, a partnership firm, turnover 0, losses claim rupees 5 lakh, whether this would be considered as a case of profit less than 8% or 6%. I guess you have given answer to that.
But how the turnover is 0 and the loss has come 5 lakhs rupees?
Maybe depreciation loss or something like that.
Depreciation loss. So the turnover, I think so what we have any, according to me, any loss return is there that is not forming a part of this. So no audit is required.
The next question is
now information technology is covered under. Yes, sir. Yes.
Vishan bhai.
Sunil bhai, you can ask.
Yeah, okay. For the next question is Avinash bhai, 4485, which talks about the maintaining books and getting them audited, gets triggered only if 4484 gets triggered, which says that lower than 8% or 6%.
44 is only for 44.
In other words,
yeah, tell me.
Okay. In other words, he's asking that if it is 8% or 6%, then no books would be required.
No, not required. Not required.
So what you can ask maximum.
Only the thing is that when scrutiny comes, you will have to justify how this turnover has been allowed, how is arrived, because that is required. How this turnover has been computed.
The working of turnover would be required in that case.
Working of turnover is required.
Especially maybe the GST returns.
Yes.
Or the bill summary or the bank statement, that those records would be help in that case.
Definitely, definitely.
Yes, Bishan bhai.
Now, someone has asked that Manish Agrawal is posting the question. Now, information technology is covered under profession. So, whether some services, for example, if I'm providing SMS services or digital marketing services, etc., will it be covered under profession as it uses internet?
See, basically, just refer to the list which is given in the which category falls within profession, which category falls within the business, because there are codes which are defined in that. So just refer to the codes which are given, whether which code you fall, whether that code falls in the business, whether that codes fall in the profession, that will justify that will give you the idea. And these codes can be downloaded from the income tax department's website also. If it is, you want that our institute has also come up with a publication on the revised 3CD. In that, all revise this technical guide on the income tax return, that is available for free download on the income tax website. You can just download that and you can get the code, respective code, whether it will form a part of profession or for a part of business. That can give you the idea. And the cost is, I mean, it is free of cost. It is free available for everybody.
Code is very important, business code,
Yes.
because the GST department, they are using this code while issuing their notices.
So yes. And secondly, you have to just also verify that your whatever the figures or the turnover which is reported in the GST are written also cross message with that, because
Yes.
now exchange of information is also there. And now while creating the utility, while generating the utility also, it doesn't allow, it gives you the gives you the error that this your turnover what is stated in the GST and what is stated here is not matching. You are going to get the notices. This type of warning messages are also being generated.
So utility now it is synced with that GST portal.
Yes. Information is synced with.
Information is synced. Okay, right. Yes, Bishan bhai.
Yes, there is a doubt. I have filed the return of my client, which is not e-verified, and I have sent to CPC within 120 days. Then what will be the return filing date? That is what people are asking. So
That we have discussed, I think. Yes, Avinash bhai.
It is the date of receipt of the communication by the CPC, not from the date which you have sent.
That would be treated as a date of return filing.
Yes. When it is received by the CPC has uploaded. Basically, CPC, when the CPC receives it, they also upload it. The date of uploading will be treated as the file.
The next question is, if books of account is maintained and ITR 3 is filed, but turnover is less than 1 crore and profit is less than 8 or 6%, it is necessary for tax audit. We have already discussed. Yes, answer is yes. That we have discussed.
Yes, perfectly.
It was duplication. The duplicate query was there. I think Bishan bhai, all the queries have been taken up, right?
Last question is that if the turnover of rupees 3.5 crore and cash transactions are 5% of the above turnover, then is audit compulsory?
Yes.
44 EB would be applicable.
Perfect. So
Keep the chart ready. That chart is there. That will be very much helpful to you, everybody. That this chart.
No, I will. We will circulate all the members, not only the participants. Those who are not participate today, for them also it is going to be helpful.
Yeah. I have tried my level best to cover everything.
No, it's really very informative and very useful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you very much. Yes, Bishan bhai.
Yes, sir. On behalf of Ahmedabad branch of WRC of ICAI, we are very much thankful to you, sir, that you have discussed, deliberated, and you resolve all the queries of our participants. So thank you very much. And we request you to join us more frequently, because in this season we need more discussions and more doubts to be clear for our members. Also, what you have suggested, sir, about the GST and income tax matching, we are also finding here the notices are issued for year 14-15 by the GST or department, CGST department, to so many SSEs. They are comparing 26 AS with service tax returns filed, and I am sure that if this exercise can be done by us for our client, it will be a value addition to the clients. So sir, thank you very much once again. Thank you very much, Sunil bhai, for being you know curator, or what we can say, designing this whole series, and we are definitely sure that we are going to have series 2 in near future. So thank you all the participants for joining in large number. Thank you very much. We are concluding this session and series here. We would like all of you to join us in the programs of the branch, and we wish all of you a happy Independence Day in advance. Thank you. Namaste.
Michhami Dukram. Michhami
Michhami
Dukram.
Dukram.